There are a lot of action movies, particularly those that came out in the 1980s and 1990s, that many would consider the greatest action movies of all time. Films like James Cameron's first two Terminator movies, Steven Spielberg's original Indiana Jones trilogy, Catherine Bigelow's Point Break, and John McTiernan's Die Hard, to name a few, are all held in such regard. Assuming you've read the title of this video, you know I'm going to be talking about one of McTiernan's other efforts in the action genre, 1987's Predator. While the film's ranking amongst the greatest action movies of all time is certainly up for debate, Predator is without a doubt a cult classic with a huge cult following, and in my opinion, deservingly so. It's an action movie that in many ways is very much of its time, but it takes then traditional action movie elements and flips them on their head, subverting them to make one of the best horror action movies of all time. What sets Predator apart from a lot of action movies is its unique twist. The film's story takes place in a very typical scenario of action movies of the time, in which a team of US Special Forces are sent to a tropical jungle on a rescue mission where they encounter and, let's be honest, completely destroy dozens of expendable soldiers. On that note, the action really is kick-ass. The fight scenes are incredible, the guns are so big, frankly it's amazing. The stunts are jaw-dropping, particularly when Dutch falls down a waterfall. The movie purposefully uses its gloriously entertaining opening action sequence to lull you into a false sense of security, by following all your typical action movie conventions. The heroes blowing shit up, posing in macho poses, spouting some of the corniest one-liners, and saving the day almost without a single scratch. But suddenly, an alien monster shows up out of nowhere and begins picking off the cast one by one. Now everything is changed, because suddenly all the big guns, macho valor, and one-liners are no longer enough to save the characters from almost certain death. It's an amazing twist that subverts expectations by tricking the audience into thinking they're watching an action movie and then suddenly pulling the rug out from under them and revealing that they're actually watching a horror movie. Part of what makes this twist so effective is the film's cast. Casting the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, and Jesse Ventura was genius, because most of this cast at this point were very well-known action movie stars, with Schwarzenegger particularly starring in films such as Conan the Barbarian, The Terminator, and Commando, all of which feature Schwarzenegger playing characters that are seemingly unstoppable, who can take on hordes of opponents and come out on top, seemingly unscathed. In Predator, the cast start out as your typical and conventional action heroes, but as soon as the Predator shows up, they are terrified. It's almost surreal watching them slowly go insane with paranoia at the realization that there's something out there in the trees that they cannot see and have no idea how to fight. Characters like Sonny Landham's Billy are so interesting because he realizes pretty early on that they're being watched, and it slowly drives him so far over the edge that he accepts his fate, taking on the Predator one-on-one so he can at least go down swinging. This movie could have been incredibly cheesy, and just had the characters continue to spout cheesy one-liners and not show a shred of fear, but luckily it took the opportunity its twist presented it with and allowed a seemingly fearless group of action heroes to be afraid. This not only adds an extra layer of humanity, but it also made the film far more suspenseful because the characters are facing a threat that genuinely terrifies them. Furthermore, it also allows the cast to showcase their acting range. Arnold Schwarzenegger is great as Dutch, as he imbues the character with charm and charisma, but also genuine terror, and I have to say, for an actor who isn't known for the greatest performances, he really pulls it off. While Schwarzenegger could very easily be considered the protagonist, he doesn't hog the spotlight, as the rest of the cast are given plenty of time to shine. The film is far more about a team rather than a singular action star, and on the character front, Predator really delivers. The characters are all so charismatic and likable, sharing terrific chemistry. They all bring their own unique elements to the story, whether that's the overconfidence of Jesse Ventura's Blaine, or the passionate devotion to his brothers-in-arms of Bill Duke's Mac, or even the crude and awful jokes of Shane Black's Hawkins. All these elements come together to create an especially memorable cast of characters who deliver some of the most memorable lines of dialogue in cinematic history. The Predator itself is a highly intriguing yet terrifying villain. In another brilliant subversion of expectations, the Predator isn't an alien conqueror with a desire for world domination, or even one that wants to eat people. The Predator is a poacher who has come to Earth to hunt worthy prey and collect trophies, so logically, It goes after the most dangerous game of all, man. The Predator is so scary because it's an alien monster that will gladly chase you through the forest trying to kill you because it thinks it's fun. It's a simplistic motivation, but it works because of its brilliant execution. The Predator will actively toy with its victims, as it does in a petrifying scene in which Dylan runs after Mac to help him kill the beast, and the Predator mimics Mac's voice to draw Dylan closer in order to kill him. Whenever the Predator kills someone, it rips out their skull and spine as a trophy, signifying a worthy kill, or perhaps worse, it'll skin them alive. Yet even more interestingly, the creature has its own fucked up sense of morality, as it only kills those who pose a significant challenge that deems them as worthy prey, rather than attack the unarmed. Yet this tiny sprinkle of morality adds yet another layer of depth to what is otherwise a simplistic yet fascinating antagonist. Additionally, the Predator's reveal is probably the most well built up and executed monster revelation I think I've ever seen. At first you only hear some small sounds made by the Predator and see some POV shots from its infrared vision. You only see it in full about halfway through the film, but in its first full appearance it's cloaked in invisibility, so technically by this point we haven't even seen it yet, allowing the audience's imagination to run wild with ideas as to what this thing could look like. You only get to see some quick glimpses of it uncloaked before finally seeing the Predator in full near the film's end, but even here we still don't really know what this thing looks like completely because it's got a mask on. You don't get to see the Predator uncloaked and without its mask on until the very end of the film, and boy was it worth the wait. The film's special effects were created by Stan Winston, the special effects artist who also worked on films such as the first 3 Jurassic Park movies, the first 4 Terminator movies, Aliens, Iron Man, and even Edward Scissorhands. His excellent effects work is on full display here, as the Predator's face is grotesquely awesome in every sense, and the Predator's invisibility effect also still looks amazing to this day, and it absolutely is best showcased when the Predator emerges from the water as its cloaking device malfunctions. The jungle setting is brilliantly used to create suspense. McTiernan creates this foreboding and overwhelming sense of claustrophobia in such a vast and sprawling location. He utilizes a lot of wides that pan and or zoom in on the trees right before cutting to a POV of the Predator watching the characters. It's a brilliant use of the location because it establishes that the Predator could be anywhere, wisely playing on the claustrophobia of the location and isolating the characters, making them feel trapped with no escape. This also draws tension and suspense from the vastness of the jungle, as the Predator has a seemingly infinite amount of places to hide and spring from to terrorize the characters. McTiernan's understanding of how to use the location has resulted in a film that creates tension and suspense using a claustrophobic yet endlessly expansive setting, as well as a terrifying villain. Predator also acts as a very interesting Vietnam War analogy. For context, during the Vietnam War, the US soldiers were sent into the country's vast jungles to fight the Viet Cong, the Southern Vietnamese Communist Revolutionary Organization allied with North Vietnam. To fight against the South Vietnamese army and the US army, the Viet Cong used guerrilla warfare tactics against them, such as hit-and-run ambushes. Predator is about a team of US special forces being sent to a foreign country to fight a war in a perfidious jungle against guerrilla soldiers, and despite being stated to be the best of the best, the US soldiers are defeated by an unseen enemy who uses hit-and-run tactics to fight. In fact, Dutch only manages to defeat the Predator in the end by adopting the same tactics. Dutch uses mud to render himself invisible to the Predator's infrared vision, he uses vines to swing between and hide in trees, he uses explosives, bow and arrows, and a spear to perform hit-and-run tactics against the Predator. In essence, Dutch himself becomes a Predator to defeat his extraterrestrial foe. He even sets booby traps, which was also used by the Viet Cong during Vietnam. Furthermore, the idea that Dutch is in fact the Predator is highlighted in a shared exchange between the Predator and Dutch as he stands victorious over his defeated foe. When Dutch asks the alien, "What the hell are you?" the Predator retorts by throwing Dutch's words straight back in his face. Thereby, the film indicates that it is in fact man that is the most dangerous predator of all. No, this movie certainly isn't perfect. There are a few editing mistakes sprinkled throughout the film that can become hard to unsee once you notice them. You can also see the blank adapters on the guns throughout the entire film, which is a very minor flaw granted, but nonetheless it does bug me a little bit. On top of that, I think it was a missed opportunity to show the Predator landing on Earth in the opening shot because it ruins any potential mystery that could have been created surrounding its origins. I would even say it would have been better and perhaps more interesting if they had somehow revealed this later in the film or even kept its origins a mystery. Those really are nitpicks though. Predator is a science fiction action movie with a very clever twist that cleverly subverts the expectations of your typical 1980s action action movie. The action is kick-ass, the special effects are amazing, the editing for the most part is solid, the cinematography is breathtaking, and Alan Silvestri's score is nothing short of badass in the most iconic way possible. Moreover, it has a cast of charismatic and likable characters and a badass yet terrifying villain in the form of the Predator itself. Predator is not only one of my favorite movies of all time, but it is without question a classic.